Hey everyone, Life Coach Carissa here. Welcome back to my channel. This week, we are continuing our exploration of emotional resilience and the mental load. And we're diving into a topic that I know resonates deeply with so many women, myself included: guilt, obligation, and the power of saying no in order to reclaim your precious energy. I mean, think about it. How often do you find yourself saying yes to things that you'd really rather say no to? Maybe it's volunteering for another task or taking on a responsibility that isn't yours, or agreeing to something that leaves you feeling drained and resentful. I chose this topic because in my work with clients and even in my own life, I see how much we focus on other people's feelings and perceptions of us. And this can be such a strong guiding force that we lose touch with our own needs, our own peace, and our own joy. And as women, and often as mothers, there's this ingrained tendency to want for everything to be done for everyone, right? And we fall into autopilot mode thinking, this is what I should do, or this is the right thing to say, or a kind person would agree to this. But how often do we truly filter these external pressures through our own internal sense of alignment? I know in my own story, I watched my mother constantly trying to please my father, who had his own emotional challenges. And she was on this endless hamster wheel of trying to meet his needs, often at the expense of her own. And what did that teach me? I would swing between trying to be the ultimate people pleaser and then feeling incredibly resentful, which would lead to moments of being overly self centered. And I really lacked that healthy balance. Now, I'm not trying to blame anyone, but it is so important for us to know where these patterns of behavior began. And living life dictated by a narrative of what we think we're supposed to do is utterly exhausting, and it drains our energy dry. I often talk about paying attention to the word should. When that pops up and you catch it, it's a red flag. It's an immediate indicator that there's a narrative running in your brain about what you believe you ought to be doing, often based on external expectations rather than your own inner wisdom. And what happens when we do find the courage to speak up and say no? So many women I work with then torture themselves with feelings of guilt and negativity about the decision they've made. Even when we align with our truth and set a boundary, we can still feel bad about it. So, how do we start to break free from this cycle of guilt and obligation and reclaim our energy? Here are a few practical steps you can take. One, start with reset questions. When you feel that familiar pull to say yes automatically, pause and ask yourself, what do I need right now? Does this feel aligned with who I want to be? And lastly, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to in my own life? These simple questions can help you break free from those autopilot people-pleasing patterns and really create space for a more conscious choice. Number 2 is practice, pause, breathe, decide. Before you give an immediate yes, even if it's just for 5 seconds, take a breath. Then ask yourself, do I truly want to do this? Is this something that I really need to carry? Will I feel resentful about this later? That small moment of space can interrupt that obligation-based choices and allow your authentic self to try to respond to you, right? We got to listen. We got to listen for those little inner signals of what it is we don't want to do. Number 3, use gentle language to set boundaries. If the thought of a direct no feels overwhelming, because this did for me, then start with softer language. Give yourself permission to be kind and clear without being harsh. That might sound like, I'd love to help, but I'm at capacity right now. That sounds so important, but let me check in with myself and get back to you. Or I'm focusing on my energy this week, so I'll need to pass on it this time. Because remember, speaking your truth isn't selfish or confrontational. It's actually an act of self-respect. And I'll take it a step further. If the recipient or receiver of that struggles with it, that is something for them to work through, not for you to solve. I'm going to add a few more. Use positive affirmations. Number 4, start to reframe those ingrained beliefs. Affirmations can be such powerful tools. I use them daily, right? So that is coming up with some sentences that align with who you're really wanting to show up as, and you can have them to anchor yourself to when things get difficult. So these might sound like, my needs matter just as much as anyone else's. Or saying no to others is saying yes to my own peace and well-being. Or honoring my capacity is not selfish, it's necessary. So try writing one of these affirmations down and repeat it daily until it starts to resonate with you. I tell everyone I have these on my phone. They pop up on my watch throughout my day. Whatever it is I'm working and focusing on, I have those affirmations very handy. Let's keep going. Number 5, track your energy leaks. Take some time to reflect on your week. Ask yourself, what activities or interactions consistently drain my energy? And identify just one area where you can try to protect your energy or scale back. It might look like overscheduling, constantly over-explaining your decisions, or just feeling like you always need to be available to everyone. So keep track of that. Number 6, celebrate the small wins. I always ask everyone to celebrate because we're so guilty of not doing this. But every time you manage to say no to something that doesn't align with you, every time you prioritize rest without guilt, every time you speak your truth, acknowledge and celebrate that small victory. Even a silent acknowledgement like, this is growth. I did this. I tried something new. That can really begin to rewire your brain. Now, what do you do when you start setting these boundaries and saying no? It's important to be prepared for potential pushback from others, right? I talked about this a second ago. Pushback doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It often means you're finally doing it right. And so when people are used to you always saying yes, your no can often feel like a disruption to this established dynamic that's already been happening. But that is not a sign to backtrack. It's often a sign that a relational rebalancing is underway, right? And like I said, that is their experience that they need to also do the work on, right? I mean, let's look at it. What are some common reactions you might encounter when you start to respond from this new place of strength and grace and maybe saying no, thank you? There's guilt tripping. You might hear things like, but you always help with this. Maybe there's minimizing. Someone might say, it's not that big of a deal. Maybe a little bit of passive aggression. You might experience the cold shoulder or sarcasm or mood shifts from that other person. They may question your character. Be prepared to respond to comments like, you've changed or you're being selfish. And sometimes they might fall into a victim stance. Somebody might say, I guess I'll just do it myself then. So I want to give you some tips of how you can evolve your responses and how you can respond effectively in these scenarios, right? Number 1, hold your tone, not their emotion. You can say something like, I can understand this is frustrating for you. I still need to honor what's right for me. Because remember, you are not responsible for managing someone else's disappointment. Stay calm, kind, and firm. It really has worked for me. Number 2, have a go-to anchor phrase. This is something you can often say without feeling the need to over-explain. So it might be like, I've given a lot of thought, and this is the best decision for me right now. I really care about you, and I also need to take care of myself right now. This boundary is about what I need, not about punishing anyone. Okay? Number 3, role play the hard moments. I often say, we kind of know people that are close to us and what their reactions might potentially be. So practice these conversations in advance, either with a friend or just in your head. Rehearsing it can really help you feel less ambushed and more confident in the moment. And you might even find it helpful to journal on these questions. What's the worst reaction I'm afraid of? And how would the most grounded version of me respond? And pre-think about all of that. What you do pre-think about will remain in your mind and hopefully be available to you when you're in that moment. Number 4, release the need to be understood. You may not be able to make everyone understand or agree with your boundaries, and that is okay. I often say not everyone is going to understand your healing and your journey. That's okay. They're not supposed to. Just stay rooted in your truth without needing permission or without needing applause. And number 5, make room for grief. Understand that some relationships might shift or stretch as you establish boundaries, and that can feel like a loss for both parties. But remember, if a relationship depends upon you abandoning yourself, it's not truly healthy. Healing boundaries often clarify what's real and what's only just been tolerated. So let's talk about the good sides of what comes from all of this awareness, right? What happens when you start to reclaim your energy by overcoming guilt and learning to say no? Because it is so truly transformative. You'll stop apologizing for needing rest. You will no longer say yes just to avoid guilt. You'll start saying yes because it actually feels like a yes. You will begin waking up without that pit in your stomach. No more constant overthinking or replaying every conversation. No more shrinking yourself to keep the peace. Instead, you will feel light and clear. You'll laugh more. You'll move through your day with your shoulders relaxed. You're more present with your kids, your partner, your own thoughts. You'll make decisions from alignment, not fear. You'll trust yourself again. You'll notice when you're tired and you'll listen. Your relationships will get richer, not because you give more of yourself, but because you finally bring your whole self to the conversation. And you'll stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to be the person that you already feel you are inside. And the best part is that you realize that taking care of yourself never meant abandoning anyone else. It just meant you finally stopped abandoning you. All right, my friends, that is what I have for you today. If this message resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you're ready to break through the guilt and obligation that is draining your energy and start reclaiming your life, I would love to support you. Schedule a complimentary clarity call at lifecoachingwithcarissa.com, and we can work together to help you understand why you feel stuck and create a plan for lasting change so that you can finally thrive. Remember, you are worthy of your own energy, your own needs, and your own yeses. Thank you for being here. Have a beautiful week, and I will see you in the next video.